listen up close today. Hi. I'm currently surrounded by books. They're everywhere. Ow, that was my hip. One of my New Year's resolutions this year is to read more books. Now, I've set that resolution in the past, and I've done pretty well, but for me, I feel like I can do better. So right now, I'm going to sit and go through every book that I have that is currently on my reading list. I'm going off topic, I suppose, but as a big Kindle lover, I think some of you will question why I have so many physical books. And some of the books have been sent to me, some of them I've been given. For example, my Secret Santa got me this. So yeah, I have a lot of physical stuff. I do prefer reading on my Kindle, if I'm honest. I prefer making the text bigger, and I can read on the go. Carrying this on the underground would be a nightmare. Anyway, let's talk about the books. These are basically the books I want to read this year. Okay, I'm gonna do a lucky dip. Got one. What is it? A History of Britain in 21 Women. My mum actually gave this to me at the beginning of December. She wanted me to read a chapter a day up until Christmas. That was her idea of a calendar this year. It didn't work out because we were away at the beginning of December. But yeah, that's how I got that. Now this one I have seen the film of, and I loved the film. I loved it so much. So the book I'm holding is The Time Traveller's Wife. For me, it's one of those stories that sticks with you, and of course it's not a realistic story, but it's still touching nevertheless, and I just hope the book lives up to my expectations. The next book is The Bone Clocks by David Mitchell. I have heard a lot about this, and the reason why I haven't read it so far is that, as you can see, it's a very thick book. Once you start it, you've really got to commit. So at some point this year, I'm going to embark on this journey. Now, the next book I actually picked up at a Penguin event recently, and the reason why I picked it up was because I liked the cover. I'm so sorry, I know you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but I'm an artist, can't help it. And the cover is stunning. The one thing I do know about this book is it's inspired by Russian fairy tales, and as a lover of fairy tales, I'm excited. Now, the next book I found in a charity shop last year for 50p in Barnardo's, yes, and it's called The Snow Child by Eowyn Ivey. By the sounds of the blurb, it's quite a serious book. It's set in the 1920s, and it's about a lady called Mabel who is haunted by the baby that she lost. So, yeah. It is good to shake up the stories that you read. Reading happy stories is great and all, but life isn't as happy as I think lots of movies and books portray it to be. So reading more serious books, or books on serious subject matters, is very important, which leads me on to my next one. This one is called Homegoing. Again, I picked this up at Penguin just before Christmas, and everyone was talking about how awesome it is. It's about two sisters. It is about elements of the slave trade. One sister is sold into slavery, and the other sister is a slave trader's wife. So that gives you a bit of a gist of where things may or may not potentially go in the book. But again, a very serious and relevant book. It's a subject matter that I haven't really read like this before, so I want to read this. I think looking forward to reading that is the wrong phrase to use, but yeah. The next book I am so excited to finally have is called Dear Stranger, and it's a collection of stuff. It's not just by one author. And so many people in the mental health community have been talking about this for a good year, and I've not been able to get my hands on a copy until now. I was actually given this in my goodie bag at the Mind Awards, so that was so lovely to receive this. So thank you, Mind. To give you a bit of a gist as to what this book is, the blurb says, Dear Stranger is a collection of inspirational, honest and heartfelt letters from authors, bloggers and mind ambassadors to an imagined stranger. It goes on to say that it gives a glimpse into different people's interpretation of happiness, and as somebody that struggles with that word, happiness, I'm intrigued. Personally, I don't believe happiness is a choice, and I have a whole video on this that I did about 2 years ago. I'm quite loud and aggressive in a way, but my points still stand. So yeah, we shall see how I get on with this. From a mental health perspective, happiness, it's very, very complicated. So yeah, it sounds good. Now, the next book on my list is a bit bittersweet. It's The Princess Diarist by Carrie Fisher. Now, I started reading this just before Christmas, and it's weird because after what's happened, I feel like I just want to step back from this just for a little bit and come back to it. I know she's written some other memoirs, and part of me does want to read those first, but this is the only one I physically have, so we'll see. This is on my reading list. I'm being attacked by a cat. Come and say hello. There we go. Sit. Seeing as I'm vlogging and I'm talking about her, Carrie Fisher was a fantastic mental health advocate, especially for bipolar, and she's well worth a look online. Now the next book on my list is another one that I've started and not yet finished, but I'm determined to finish this as soon as possible. It's The One Memory of Flora Banks by Emily Barr, and I think it's just about to come out. 12th of January. I've had 2 or 3 copies of this year, proof copies, so I can't wait to see the final finished version. There's a lot of hype surrounding this book. Basically, it's about a girl who loses her memory and trouble ensues. I haven't yet finished it, so I can't pass comment. Not yet. Soon. Like The Lion King. There we go. So yeah, and the last book I held up briefly at the beginning. It's Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, and although this is a book, it's actually a script. When I was at film school, I wrote and I read loads of scripts, so for me, I'm quite used to reading this type of format. I know lots of people have struggled to read the script format. It's a bit like reading Shakespeare in a way. I do really want to go and see the play, but of course it's absolutely packed out, so the chances of me getting to see the play are quite small, so this is my only chance to catch up with everybody. The one thing about this though is I have heard lots of negative reviews about it, and I'm just hoping that I don't feel that way in regards to this, because Harry Potter means so much to me. Depending on how that goes, I may review that in the future. And the only book I currently have on my Kindle is The Circle by David Eckers, and I started reading this last week. I'm about 100 pages in, and I love it. This is actually being turned into a film very shortly. It's starring Emma Watson and Tom Hanks. It's basically about a corporation that's a bit like Apple, but it seems to have taken over the world, and from the impression I'm getting in the book and from the trailer, it's going to go the Big Brother sort of way, 1984. Battery went flat, so continuity, boom. So those are all the books that are currently on my reading list. I hope this has been interesting. There are some other books I'd like to read. I want to finish the Lunar Chronicles. I did start reading the second book in that series last year and I sort of gave up. But lots of people have said, no Becca, keep reading, it gets more interesting the more you read. Okay, yeah, I'll put that on my list. That's on my list. If you have any books that you'd like to recommend, especially if they're in the same categories as the ones I've mentioned, then comment downstairs. And also in the video description is the link to my Goodreads, Becky J. Brown. I am determined to read more books this year, and if I read half of the books that are in front of me, I will be proud of myself. I'd like to do some reviews of these books as I go along, but I'm not sure whether or not to include them in favourites videos or do their own videos, so let me know what you prefer downstairs. So yes, I'm now going to go before my battery dies again. I'll see you soon, everyone. Don't mind me, I'm just doing the thumbnail, just smiling. And then I'll screenshot one of those in editing and use it. Oh, by the way, you can click on the links either side of my face. They'll take you to magical places.